to officially welcome you, Ioanna. It's very nice also to see so many members online. In a minute, Andreas will help us by guiding us through the countries that people are connected from. So I would like to officially welcome everybody to the webinar that we host on THLG behalf. And Ioanna Topaloglou, an insurance broker with a long experience in cargo insurance and freight forwarders liability, is kind enough to give us a pro bono webinar, giving us insight and information about this very important topic that we all care about lately. So, Ioanna, thank you so much for joining us. We are all ears. The microphones are going to be on mute, but feel free, anybody who wishes to join into a conversation, make a question or something, do unmute yourself and jump into the conversation.
Okay, fine. So, it's nice to be here today with you. Whatever has to do with insurance is very broad, and none of us can always say that we know everything. We learn every day, and we try to obtain as much knowledge as we can. So, I suppose you as freight forwarders are exposed to the easiest degree of liability at all times. So we say culpa levissima. You're always there. And whenever something happens, everybody shows the fingers towards you. So your obligations are there during all the phases of the business operation, from the moment that the goods are received up to the moment they are delivered to the receivers. I understand that some of you are dealing with their business from A to Z, and you may act as principals or operators. And some of you are outsourcing their entire transportation, including services. Others, periodically or sporadically, rely on carriage to manage a surge of delivering goods your own transport services cannot handle. Yet some of you seek a provider to cover some geographical areas that you cannot reach. So, if you act as a carrier, you will issue your own bills of lading, you will arrange for the transportation, you will charge a fee. If, on the other hand, you act as agents, you are accountable to your clients as to the selection of your subcontractors. And this, of course, has to be done very carefully and with due diligence. It is vital to stress that contracts between a contracting party and a service provider may therefore involve multiple levels of subcontracting, complicating the assignment of responsibilities in case that you misdeliver or you lose or the goods are stolen or damaged. And this is something that emphasizes the importance of information sharing among the involved parties and the necessity for all of you to adapt certain best practices and tools, ensuring an effective and sustainable collaboration. So it is of great importance for the freight forwarding company to sign a contract with the customer outlining exactly the services you are providing based on your own business models and applicable laws in the countries or regions where you're operating. And of course, I understand that when you're talking about small packages, most of the deals are being done through emails where you set up your terms, your conditions, your remuneration, and then you get an acceptance or a declinature. Many attempts have been made since 1967 to draft a recognized paper of what you can do, what you cannot do, what are your obligations. In 1967, of course, everything failed. Nobody was interested. Then there were some other discussions in 1980, 1996, and finally, in 2019 in Cape Town, an updated FIATA model rules were adopted, And these are the rules that most of the freight forwarders are using. So, what are the risks that you are exposed during the risks that you are exposed and which you have to cover? What you should be covering is your cargo and your legal liability. Your legal liability in case you are found negligent. Or you've done an error or an omission, which will make you liable and which a receiver might sue you for. You have fines and duty liabilities. Don't forget that sometimes you deal with ports. There are some regulations that the ports have. There are duties that have to be paid, and if you're not up to the standards and you do not know exactly what are the requirements for the cargo that you are going to transport, then you might be in trouble. So you have in your cover, in your liability cover, you are covered for fines and duties. You will have to be covered for third-party liability damages and property damages and bodily injury in case one of your subcontractors or you will be found liable doing causing damages to a bridge, to a fence once the truck is the truck driver maybe fell asleep and he just went bang into a house. You also have the errors and omissions policy. All these, your main contract has a sum insured. The sum insured normally is around $1 million. But under your policy, you have subsections, the fines and duties, the bodily injuries, the errors and omissions, the consequential losses. So each one of those sections have a sum insured. Normally, the total sum insured cannot exceed the sum of your legal liability policy. That is, if you have 1 million, all the sub sections cannot exceed the 1 million. So these are the main risks that you have to be covered for. All these liabilities normally are covered under your liability policy with the sub sections. Very seldomly, you can have one policy for each of these risks. I don't think it's advisable because it's more it's not that cost effective. Now, during the transportation, most of the times we do not use only one means. We might use various means. We might use a road transport, we might use a vessel, we might use people that load or discharge the cargoes, we might have mobile cranes, we have various people involved in the transaction. So, you're the freight forwarder, you have your cover, you get involved with the transportation, but you've got some contractors. And the subcontractors can be a road haulier. Πριν από αυτό. Sorry. Right. Let's see that we don't make a mistake. So we have the road haulier, who again must be insured preferably with the same limits as you are, but because some of them are not that keen on having very big limits, we always try at least for them to have a slightly smaller limit. so that in case of a claim, they will be covered. Port authorities, apart from the road hauliers, we have transportations that deal with ships. Most of the cargoes are going through with vessels. So we have the port authorities involved. All the port authorities, whether they're small or big ports, they all have a liability policy. And most of the times, the stevedoring companies are part of the port authorities. That is, they are employees of the port authorities. So the port authorities also cover under their liability the stevedores. In case where we have, let's say, some very remote ports and they're very small and their liability insurances are not that big and they're not having their own stevedores, then we have to see whether there are any stevedoring companies which, if we employ them, then they as well will have to have a liability policy because they are not part of the port authorities, they are separate companies. As I said, we've got cargo vessels. Cargo vessels always have their P&I cover because they cannot trade without a P&I cover. And the P&I cover is the reliability cover that normally for the pool clubs is huge, but for smaller vessels that are not insured under the P&I clubs and they're insured in fixed facilities, they also have a liability cover. It's not that big as the pool clubs offer, but still there is a liability cover. The same applies for barges. Barges are also covered for liability risks because there are cases where the cargo has to be transferred with barges in rivers. It's not always a voyage through the seas. And of course, we have when we have big cargoes, we have mobile crane companies that have to to load or discharge the cargo and to transport it, who again have to have their own liability cover. So we see that during the chain, during the whole transaction, all the parties involved have to have a liability cover, one way or another. It has to be there, and it has to be not on the loan side, talking about the sum insured, but it has to be quite substantial because sometimes the consequential losses that a receiver might claim are not small. They might be big. So we need to be fully
Ioanna, do you
covered.
mind if I interrupt here for a minute to ask something about the limits here that you just mentioned? So it is clear that as freight forwarders, we are insuring our liability and for negligence and all the other things that you mentioned earlier. But is the limit that we insure somehow related to the value of the cargo?
Look, if we are going to talk about big project cargoes, yes, because the company that the supplier or the receiver will ask, what is your limit of liability under your liability policy? And if it is small, they will ask you to increase it. So it has some sort of a significance. Yes, you cannot, for example, transport a cargo which is valued, let's say, $5 million, and you have a liability of $1 million. We will discuss this when we discuss the project cargoes. So once all parties, you as a freight forwarder work with our fully covered insurance-wise, and you have approved their insurance cover, because you have to approve their insurance cover, because they might tell you, oh, yes, we have, but they will not have, or they will tell you that, yes, we have for $1 million, but they will have for 50,000 or whatever. Once you approve their insurance cover and the terms and conditions they work and perform their duties, you will feel comfortable to work with them, and you will feel comfortable also towards your supplier and towards the receiver. So, what are the risks that you might be involved in during the transactions? So during the transportation of the cargo, during the whole period that you are involved in the transportation of the cargo, you have to do your due diligence, not only when the voyage, the contract commences, but until the contract ends. So the due diligence is during the whole period of transportation. So when you have small cargoes, it's okay, you don't need a lot. But when you have big value cargoes, you have to make sure that the loading is strictly based on the specifications and manuals of your client. Because this is where, at the end, you might be found liable. So the loading and the selection has to be done strictly based on the specifications that you will be given. Your subcontractors have to be fully aware of the peculiarities of each cargo. They must know exactly what the cargo is, how it should be handled, how it should be loaded, how it should be stowed, how it should be discharged. So if you appoint a subcontractor who is not aware or who has never transported a specific cargo, you might be in a difficult position. So when selecting your subcontractor, he has to be fully aware of everything. If you have a road haulier, you have to decide on the routes that you will use, the weather conditions that you might face during the transport, the road conditions, whether you need the distance that the road haulier will perform. Maybe you will need 2 drivers instead of 1. Where will they stop? They will not stop on the highway, but they will have to stop at specific rest areas, parking areas. They will have to see whether they will be going under bridges. Is the height of their lorry that which can go under the bridge, or is it going to collide with the bridge, and then there are other issues involved? They have to be, there should be always a plan B at the back of your mind. You have to have a plan B in case something unexpected happens. Say you have a flood, say you have an earthquake, whatever during the transport. You need to be able to have a plan B. And it is always very good and very efficient to report, to have a reporting during the voyage on a daily basis, so that you can always check until the very end the transportation of the cargo. And when you document everything, it is very seldom that you will be held liable for claims, for a potential claim. However, as much as we don't want to to be involved in claims, claims inevitably will knock on our door. There's no way that we can say there will be no claims. Sometimes claims are genuine, sometimes claims are false, fake, or there are no claims at all. But it is true that claims happen. So, I forgot to say something more before I go into the claim side. When I suppose that some of you might act as carriers also. So we all know that most of the trade is being done by sea, most of it. So when you have a sea transport, you are involved as a sea carrier, you will have to issue your bills of lading. You will have to include a paramount clause incorporating the Hague dispute rules. You have to make sure that the correct details on the bill of lading are inserted, that you will not sign any bills of lading that are predated or post-dated, that any on-deck storage will not be affected if you have signed for an under-deck stowage. If you've signed on a deck stowage, you have to have specific wordings in order to be covered. And you have to make sure that you will not deliver the products to the wrong person. If there's a specific name, a specific receiver, a consignee on the bill of lading, you have to make sure that you're delivering to him. If it is to the order, the bill of lading has to be endorsed, because if you deliver the cargo to another person other than the one that you have to, then you will not be covered. So this is very important for those who issue their own bills of lading. So, claims. We've got a claim from a receiver. What do we do? The first thing that we do is we acknowledge receipt of the claim, notification, always without prejudice, and we repudiate any liability from our side. This is the standard letter that we always have to issue. Our next step is immediately to advise our insurers of a potential claim, our liability insurers. We've got this claim, this is what the receiver is asking. And at the same time, we have to advise our subcontractors, because maybe in the chain, our subcontractors are liable for damage to cargo because, let's say, the tarpaulin of the rod haulier was in a bad condition, and it had holes, and there was water in the cargo, and the cargo was damaged. I'm just giving an example. So your subcontractors have to be fully advised. Prima facie, the insurance company which insures the cargo will cover the cargo owner, provided that he gives them the bill of lading, the commercial invoice, the survey report, or the customs report, and the insurance company will pay the claim to the receiver. And of course, most of the times they will get a subrogation letter, and they will consider whether they will come against you or not. But there are some risks that the insurance company has, consequential risks. For example, the insurance company will not pay. So then if you're held liable, they will come against you. The owner of the cargo will come against you. So, as I said, you keep your insured. And this is why also, apart from advising your insurers immediately of a potential claim, if there is correspondence exchanged between you and the receiver or the insurance company or whoever, this correspondence has to be sent to your insurer so that they know where, if there's a potential claim, how they will deal with it. Maybe they will ask for a survey to be carried out if the cargo is somewhere abandoned. There are many questions that your insurance company can come up and ask. So most of the times, your insurers will not want to get involved in the first instance. They will sit back and they will wait. They will be involved only if finally you will be found negligent and liable for omitting to give maybe the proper instructions or advices, and therefore, under the policy conditions, you are liable. In this instance, they will estimate the quantum of your claim. They will compensate you under a subrogation letter, and they will go and try to recover the paid value from your subcontractor. If the claim is unfounded, of course, they will reject it. Sometimes freight forwarders, instead of going directly to their insurance company, to their liability insurers, they might go to the subcontractors, and maybe they can deal with the claim among themselves, between themselves, instead of going to their liability underwriters. And if the liability underwriters will have to pay, then it will go into the record, something which I'm sure you do not wish to happen. So, as I said before, if you are cautious and you are taking all your preventive measures, it is very seldom that you will be held liable. Let me see my notes. So now, according to the FIATA rules, you know that you can be discharged of all your liabilities, unless, of course, there is a suit against you within 9 months after the delivery of the goods or the date when the goods should have been delivered. So, as I said, if all the necessary actions are followed, it's very difficult for you to be found liable. And this is why I personally believe, because I can see it in my everyday life, is that all instructions have to be given in a written form. And if any queries arise, they have to be answered and noted. This is the only way that you can mitigate your claims. Document whatever you can, have everything in writing, so that nobody can come and accuse you of any sort of negligence. At least willful negligence. We all make mistakes, but at least we document everything and we avoid having serious implications and complications. Any questions up to here? Elizabeth?
Oh, for me, it's clear up to now.
Now, in the recent renewable energy construction development towards the modularization and renewable energy sectors has surged interest in the project cargoes. And the transport of oversized cargo of high value requires specialized stowage, lifting, transporting, loading, unloading, discharging at different ports. And the transportation of oversized or out-of-gauge cargoes are normally carried out by dry cargo vessels, preferably vessels that have box-shaped holds, because there you gain space, that their hatches are of a certain dimension and design. They have specific cargo gears. They have a maximum permissible loading capacity. They have a better maneuverability. And these ships are mostly they're commonly used for oversized cargoes. But again, until the cargo is shipped on board such a ship, other transport means are also required, with specialized mobile cranes or with uh, special vehicles. Maybe during the voyage, you will have also barges in rivers because ships cannot get into, big ships cannot get into the rivers. So when you have this type of request, which I understand is not very often, you will have immediately to advise your liability insurers and make sure that your liability cover is adequate for this particular project cargo. And this is where, Elizabeth, you were asking whether you have to have the value of the cargo plays a role. Yes, it plays a role. And also the limits of the consequential losses also have to be increased. So most of the times, if you have one or two projects, maybe a year of high value cargoes, okay, you go back to your underwriters, you advise them of the peculiarities of the cargo that you will be transporting and the details of the cargo and what are the specifications, and they will charge you a premium, and they will also impose various conditions for the specific cargo. So you will have to pay an additional premium. So if you have one or two of these projects, okay, I can understand that you can pay the additional premium and you can live with the 1 million, let's say, limit that you have on your annual policy. However, in today's environment, with the rise of decarbonization concerns, where developing countries urge to switch from oil and coal to LNG as the primary energy source, and due to the climate change, more and more oversized and out-of-gauge cargoes are transported. This may mean that you might be asked to sign a contract for multiple such transports, and therefore it will be wise for your cover to be from day one at a higher limit. Because if you have more than one or two projects a year, if you are to pay additional premiums every time, then it becomes uneconomical for you. So in this instance, if you have such a contract, it's much better to have a higher limit all over the year. So as soon as you're asked to quote for such an oversized cargo, because it's going to be totally different than your normal cargoes, you will have to ask your supplier to give you a detailed specification of the cargo. What are you going to load? How are you going to load it? Are there any peculiarities? The value of the cargo, because that has a connection with your limits, of course. In this instance, you choose your subcontractors very carefully, and you also plan your route again carefully. The same way that you were doing it with your normal cargoes, but here it has to be done in more detail. And of course, when you will be using the subcontractors that you will be you will choose, you must be sure that they know how to handle this type of cargoes, because not everybody knows how to handle oversized cargoes. I mean, nobody knows everything. So everybody specializes. and especially with these type of cargoes, which are very expensive, and the consequential losses can be huge.
If I may step in again here, now that you're mentioning the subcontractors, I believe that the issue, at least we as Cosmatos are facing here, and I would really appreciate to hear also from other members their experience, is not finding the right people to do the job, is whether these people are well insured for doing this type of job. For example, if we need to meet an insurance limit of 1 million, let's put that to be easy, it's very difficult for us to find subcontractors like hauliers or okay, crane operators usually have high limits, but the transport companies don't, at least not in Greece. So I really would like to hear how is the case in Brazil, how is the case in Canada? Do you face the same problems with your subcontractors? Are you always able to find people working for you who are insured under the same limits as you have to be for your customer?
Or if not the same limit, at least a substantial one.
Let's hear what is the
Here,
case in Canada, maybe. Don, can you help us here?
Yes, in Canada, the carriers we use, we always want to make sure that they do have limits that protect them and us. So it's common for carriers to have $1 million or $2 million in liability. Bigger carriers moving more substantial cargoes, project cargoes, their liability coverage is even higher. So when we move cargoes in Canada, we feel kind of secure that they have verified their insurance coverage in these numbers.
So you're among the lucky ones. I wonder how is the case in Brazil? Plenty of people here from Brazil.
Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. Yeah, in Brazil we have similar like in Canada, but we have also many companies that do not offer this, and we have also price difference when we talk about heavy haul. Sometimes they also talking to the heavy lift group members, they say that we are too expensive, but it happens that sometimes our competitor are using trucking companies that are not liable or not using the correct insurance for the cargo, and of course they have this less cost, and of course we always go to the carriers that are insured. So it's a big issue because sometimes we're not too competitive, but we see also big customers running this risk. They are sometimes using a freight forwarder to avoid these troubles direct with the trucking companies that are not secured, and at the end, accidents happens, and then of course they bring always these discussions again, and there is always someone that is losing money at the end. So that's what is happening here.
So this means that it transfers the risk to you, and you're the one who's going to pay if something goes wrong. And there will be no recourse from your subcontractor.
Exactly, yeah. That's why we have, of course, like a different. I mean, from Greece, Brazil is a very big country. We have thousands of subcontractors or suppliers, and of course, we have our register trucking companies that are following some of our requirements from insurance. So. And that's changed from area to area, because in South Brazil we have different companies, in North Brazil, Northeast. So for us it's a big task, and sometimes also a matter of being competitive or not because of this difference now. So on prices and also on equipment, maintenance, and so on, because they are not following exactly the requirements of the insurance company or the liability insurance, like yeah, when you move something, you need to present some documents that they present, but they are not following exactly. So we have, as freight forwarder, we have to inspect them and make sure that they are following our insurance rules, let's say, or requirements.
You know, some policies, because many times you cannot have the same liability. The subcontractor cannot have the same liability with the freight forwarder. There are policies that underwriters put in the warranty that at least we need to have the subcontractor to have a limit, let's say, of 100, 200, $300,000, just trying to be on the safe side. But when you're talking about oversized cargo, this is not enough. Because if something happens to this oversized cargo, the damages that people can ask from you, the receivers can ask from you, are huge. Because maybe the cargo will need to be repaired. Maybe it is destroyed and there will be need for new one. Maybe the delays are huge. All these things are money. They are translated into money. And money is expensive.
Don't we all know that? Yes. Thank you. Thank you for the short intervention. And please, Ioanna, if you can carry on with your presentation.
So as I said, I mean, for the oversized cargo, this is what you really need. But on the other hand, we also need to know and to provide what information is required by our underwriters when they are asked to give us cover, bigger cover, and especially for oversized cargoes. So the company, the insurance company, the liability insurance company, will ask what is your company's manual regarding oversized cargo transport? How do you deal with it? It's like a small ISO. It's a manual, okay? How do we have our ISO manual? It's the same thing. What is the estimated volume of the oversized cargo? The value of the oversized cargo? The parties that will be involved. If the cargo is transferred by sea, it has to be professionally and adequately packed and protected for the voyage. If it is on deck, we have to have sea fastening must be provided against sliding and tipping. Vessels that will be used have to be fully insured. Maybe the insurance company on a specific, let's say, project cargo will wish to come and will wish to have a condition survey. Maybe will require a survey during the loading and the discharging. It depends on the project cargo. And as much as information as you can provide to your insurance company, the better understanding they will have, and the better premiums you will obtain. But the most important thing is that they will ask you to provide them with your manual. How do you handle this type of cargoes? It's very important. I left for the end a very hot topic in today's environment. And I wanted to talk about it with you. And this topic is called magic sanctions. I suppose that we're all familiar with this topic. And things as they develop now are becoming stricter and stricter for all of us who are in this servicing business, but generally speaking, in all businesses. So, sanctions. We all know that in your policies, you have a sanction clause. The sanction clause means, I suppose, you must all have it, right? Am I right or am I wrong? This sanction clause means that if you are involved in any relationship with a sanctioned party, your underwriters will not be able to pay. So, you are freight forwarders, you deal with subcontractors, you deal with shippers, you deal with ship owners, you deal with all sorts of people. Sanctions are not only for cargoes, they're for cargoes from various parts of the world like Russia, Belarus, Iran, Syria, but they're also imposed on individuals and on companies. And I may say it happened to us on directors of companies. So under the new norm, every time we have a shipment or cargo to send out, we have to go through the sanctions checking. And this means that we have to check the manufacturers, the shipper, the receiver, the port of loading, discharging, agents, subcontractors, whoever is involved. And when we say cargo, we also mean if the cargo is permissible. And if it is permissible, what type of cargo is it? And, well, this as to the cargo. But at the moment, if you are aware, we have 3 sets, unfortunately, of sanctions lists, of sanction lists. We have OFAC, we have the EU, and we have the UK. And I recently heard that we will also have Australian sanctions. So what are these lists? These lists you can upload on your computer, and you can check the, you can put on the name of your subcontractor or your shipper or whoever, and you can check whether he's on the list or not. I dare say that for some not all people considered to be sanctioned are on the list for various reasons, which I don't think we can discuss. So when you do your sanction checking, document everything and keep it in your files for at least 3 years. Keep the whatever you have found from the various lists, keep it in a file for the specific voyage. Some entities or individuals or companies are the same on all the lists. Some are not. Some cargoes are in one list and some cargoes are not on the other list. So you can imagine what sort of confusion, everybody is. We as brokers, you as freight forwarders, underwriters, everybody. And to be honest, underwriters are not involved in this issue. They just give the rates. When it comes to sanction checking, it goes to the so-called compliance department. And the compliance department has nothing to do with underwriting. So even if I go back to my underwriter and I scream and I shout and I say, why aren't you replying and why aren't you covering me? The reply that we get is, sorry, our hands are tied, compliance. So whatever compliance says, that's it. No question. Nothing can be done. It's what compliance has decided. So some compliance departments might consider some entities of low risk, some might consider them of high risk. So I could say that when you have to do big projects, sometimes it's much better if you involve in the checking a law firm that specializes in sanctions. I'm not saying you can do it all the time because law firms are very expensive, but on some occasions, maybe you will have to do it. And we all know that lawyers will never give you a straightforward answer, yes or no, but at least they will guide you, and sometimes you will have to take the risk. And because you appreciate that they will never tell you yes or no because they're afraid of their liability policy and their errors and omissions policy. So in today's environment, whatever is okay today is not tomorrow. And the voyage may start with everything being okay and ending at the end with something being not okay. So things are not straightforward, put it this way. When a claim occurs, your underwriters, before paying you, will affect the sanction checking. And if they find that one of the entities is sanctioned, they will not pay the claim. They will refuse to pay your claim. Even if you have done a sanction check at the beginning, if at the end there is a sanctioned entity, you will be in trouble. However, because you might have documented everything in your due diligence papers when you were supposed to do, when you were starting your voyage, and you can demonstrate that, I did everything. I checked, there was nothing to be afraid of, and I went and proceeded with the transport. There might be a discretion, but that is not something which really happens all the time. So sanctions is a nightmare. And I can tell you that, as I said, there is a company, a freight forwarding company that was fined $6 million for violating the sanction clause. And this is because if some of you work with dollars, we all know that paying with dollars, there is an intermediary bank in the States where all the payments go through. So even if you pay $1 or you pay $1 million, it will go through the intermediary bank. And if they decide to check or they see something peculiar, maybe they will come back with a question, maybe they will return the money, maybe they will go a bit deeper. And if they find something that you are doing on a regular basis, if it happened once, okay, maybe you're excused. But if you're doing on a regular basis and you don't have a system where you document everything, then you will be fined. I attended a conference the other day during Posidonia where the chief prosecutor of the Department of Justice was there. She was a very young lady with a very nice mini dress, with a smile up to her ears, and she was explaining to us the whole procedure. And at the end, she ended up her speech by saying that it's much better if you come in, if you see something peculiar, to come in on a voluntary basis and talk to us, because then things will be much better. But for sure, you will not wish to be with me in the same room. Now, that was a bit scary, the way she put it, smiling always. So you can imagine what complications and implications you can have if you don't perform your sanctions check correctly. That's all I have to say. If you have any questions, I'm here.
Well, thank you.
Very happy topic.
It is really the hot potato here. So you did mention, if I recall correct, 3 different sites that we should check for sanctions, right?
Yes. It's the OFAC site, it's the UK, and it's the EU.
Is it possible for you to share with us the links for that, just to make sure that we
I
give?
think you go into OFAC, OFAC SDN list, and there you can see the and there is there you can put the name of the company or the name of the person. You can the country, and you press search and it comes out.
Okay, thanks. Now, I see there are a few questions. Dawn, if you want to take the question with Ioanna, though I think Marianne gave a very good answer, but just to make sure that we are on the right page here.
Yes, hi, Don Kinsella from Canada. I was wondering, Ioanna, when a client says they self-insure, I guess it's still appropriate for the freight forwarder to do his usual diligence as far as all his liability and protection.
Sorry, is this a question for me?
Yes, yes. Ioanna, if
Can you repeat, because I didn't hear you very well.
Okay. When a client say they self-insure, what positions should the freight forwarder still take in regards to their own liability?
If the subcontractor is self-insured.
If the shipper, the client of the freight
The
forwarder,
client is self-insured, that you mean that the client, the receiver, or the shipper?
if my client in this case was the shipper, so the shipper self-insures from, FCA loaded to deliver DAP at the destination.
And the receiver is not insured? Has not insured his cargo?
The cargo insurance would be for the account of the shipper. So the shipper would insure the full transport up
Okay.
until site.
So he will insure the transport on behalf of his client.
On behalf of himself, he self-insures. So he doesn't.
So he doesn't have any insurance.
Pardon me?
He doesn't have any insurance.
The shipper has all risk insurance.
Oh, he has an all risks insurance.
Right.
He's insured. It doesn't mean
Yes.
he's not insured, and he insures the cargo on behalf of his client.
No, allow me to step in and give a short explanation, maybe because the line is not so clear. Η Ιωάννα ρωτάει ότι άμα ο πελάτης του οποίος είναι ο εξαγωγέας σου λέει ότι εγώ έχω ασφαλιστεί για τον δικό μου κίνδυνο και έχω ασφαλίσει το φορτίο. Τι κάνει ο forwarder σε αυτή την περίπτωση? Άρα, the question here is, if your client, if the shipper or the receiver, whoever is the client, tells you that he is self-insured, meaning that he has covered the cargo and the transport as a total, what is the position of the freight forwarder? Do we need still to insure our liability, or are we covered just because our client is declaring that he is self-insured?
Your liability is, you have a liability policy for a year. You're covered for everything. Nothing might happen, but the receiver at the other end might have a claim against you, irrespective of whether the shipper has affected in no risks insurance or has insured the cargo. Your liability is still there.
Yes. So
because
it's
the receiver might come back and say, first of all, the receiver, if the shipper has insured the cargo, it has insured under CIF conditions, which means that he has insured the cargo for the receiver. As soon as the title is is transferred to the receiver and there is a claim, the insurance company will pay the damages, right, to the cargo. But
Yes.
if they're held negligent for one reason or another, they will come to you.
But they have to prove that a
Yes.
freight forwarder was
Of course.
negligent.
Of course,
So-
that's why I said that it's very difficult for the freight forwarder to be held liable if you are doing the right thing.
Nevertheless, we are obliged to be insured, and we are obliged to pay, of course,
Look.
high premiums every year.
Look, if you don't want to be insured, you take the risk. If there is a claim, you've got the money and you pay.
If proved of
Yes,
negligence.
if proved. But don't forget that sometimes you have to go to court, and the court expenses are huge. Now, this is something that you have to take into consideration. I suppose that Donald knows how much is the cost of a lawyer per hour in Canada or in the States.
Yes.
And
In
it's a
with
big risk.
with our liability insurance here, our underwriters will cover court costs up to $250,000.
Exactly, which is not a lot,
No.
right? Yeah, which
Yes.
is not a lot. Yeah.
We have another question. I believe we covered that part from India. I don't know if Nilesh, would you like to
Δεν καταλαβαίνω αυτήν.
Nilesh has written something on the chat box anyhow. So how do we de-risk from the excess clause? I don't understand the question, so that's
The
why.
excess clause is a clause that is the deductible.
All right, okay, okay.
We
Okay.
all have how can you get rid of the deductible?
How to de-risk? I mean, how to be covered from $1? Is that the question, Nilesh?
You want to cover your deductible.
I
Is that
think that
what she says?
it's a he, and I can't see him on. Okay, Nilesh, you're here.
You can always cover your deductible. No, I won't say that.
Yeah. Sorry. There's some audio issue.
There's a lot of echoing. Maybe better to have only one
Sorry,
mic.
there's some audio issue in my system. Am I audible now?
Yes.
आपका headphone पे लगा है।
We have a project to move.
Sorry. You can take the other next question. I'll come. There's some technical issues.
Okay, but I believe that is what you meant. If you can get rid of the deductible, is it?
You can always insure your deductible, but believe me, the price to insure the deductible is huge, and also there will be a deductible on the deductible. So I don't think it's wise to.
It's not recommended, in other words.
Recommended. It's not, because the premium is going to be high. Because the first thing that
is it am I audible now? Sorry, I have a one question here. Sorry for the issues here with the technical side. There are certain customers who wanted a very high excess clause, and at times these excess clauses are at par with the freight what is being charged by us. And we checked up that and these customers are overseas customers. So let's say a company based off of France or a European company especially, who are doing a business in India, they says that such policies are available to the freight forwarding company in Europe, but such policies are not available here in India. We have taken up this matter many a times, but then we could not find any overseas company to issue a policy in India. So as you said, we have even tried for looking for the excess or extra premium for that also. That is also not working out. So is there any way which what we can do, or we can ask for to the clients like this, so that we can de-risk ourselves with this high excess clause?
So you mean you cannot find the liability cover in India?
Yes. Yes, to this extent where the excess clauses are, let's say, $20,000 or $30,000.
You cannot find the cover in excess of 20,000. Δεν τον ακούω καλά. I cannot hear you very well.
All right, so I'll send a mail to Julia, and then maybe we can sort out this issue through.
Yes, and maybe we can try and find something. But as I said, to ensure your deductible is difficult.
All right. So the second question, I have here is that,
It's
let's say,
uneconomical. I'll put it this way: it's uneconomical.
okay, I'll give you a certain case through an email, and maybe then we can discuss further.
Yes.
The second question I have is that, let's say that we are doing a business or handling a job for someone who has nominated here in India. So let's say that Don has given us any job here in India to do the job, and we have hired the vehicle. We have our own vehicle, and we are taking the market vehicle also. We have hired the vehicle and we are doing that job, and then there is some incident happen. In such case, how the insurance document will be prepared, because for that particular job we have our insurance. Don, whosoever is the underwriter of Don's forwarding company or their consignee, how are they going to settle the points? Or like, as a forwarder, how Don is protecting his interest?
Don is protecting his interest under his liability policy. You have your own policy, and you are hiring another truck, right, from somebody else.
Right.
This somebody else, does he have a liability policy?
No.
The guy that you're hiring that will do the transport.
Yeah, they don't have the liability policy. They are a small time operator, and in India it's quite common to not have such kind of a policy, and that's how this market works.
Yeah, well,
my question here is that in such case, does the Don underwriters is going to come to us?
Don's underwriter might come to you if you are held liable. It's only if you are held liable they will come against you.
So in such case, my liability insurance will work, or I have to look for the my vendor's liability insurance?
Your liability. You are the named person, aren't you, in the contract?
Yes. In such case, with me and Don transactions, yes, I am the one is the responsible.
So they will come to you if you are held liable.
All right. Okay, we have a certain similar issues right now which is going on, and we are facing a situation here that the underwriters, whatever documents are being available here, does not comply with the document required by the underwriters. Like when we are doing the transactions between one freight forwarding company with the other freight forwarding company, we discuss commercials, but we never discuss the document required by the underwriters to settle the claim during the discussions or during the transaction relation. So this is one of the gray areas, especially when we are working out with the Far East country, between India and Far East company, between India and country like Bangladesh, India, and Europe in such case. So our learning into handling such cases is that whenever between the forwarding company then transaction is happening, because of the document required by the underwriters of the others company who is insuring this is not clear, many a time such claims are being rejected. Our claims to similar kind of cases where our cargo was handled by some of our overseas partners and there was an incident happen, many a times their underwriters have rejected our requirements or our underwriters' claims, stating that it was not discussed before or this was not covered. And so in a project cargo business, when we are facing something like this, we have seen that between these two countries, the document requirements are also not very clear in the beginning, and therefore we are facing the risk for it. So I'm just sharing the experience on this.
When you're having a project cargo and you are acting as a freight forwarder, you're asking from your subcontractor to have his insurance, but his underwriters will not give the insurance that the terms and conditions that you are asking.
Yes, yes.
So
Most of the time we don't get this.
Yeah, there might be a gap there, right?
Yes, this is the gap which we have realized it over the years, and this all comes up only when things goes into the wrong hands, or when the Murphys are onto the work, then such things happen. But before that, I've tried to ask to many of our counterpart also to share such documents, which of course we all discuss so much of price that we don't discuss this.
You're right. Well, I understand that each country has its own peculiarities and difficulties, and underwriters all over the world are not the same. The needs are different. The
Thank you.
culture is different.
Yeah.
So it would be safe to say, Ioanna, I think that you can never be 100% insured, right?
Yes, and you can never be rely that your underwriters will always pay you.
Yeah. Let me
The
carry
insurance
on.
world, unfortunately, I'm in this business for many, many years, and I've seen quite a lot of things.
Yes, I know.
There are always bits and pieces.
Let me move on because, as I told you, this is a hot topic. So we have questions coming. I will read the one that Ildus from Kazakhstan is writing to the comments, unless Ildus wants to take the microphone. We have a project to move by road and marine modes, so both road and sea transport. Max cargo value per piece is $1.5 million. Max cargo value per conveyance, marine voyage, comes to $12 million. We act as a carrier, a road carrier, so as a haulier. The vessel owner is self-insured up to $5 million. Should we ask to purchase additional liability insurance based on the cargo value variance? So they are the trackers, and the maximum value is 1.5 million. The trackers, right? And then the vessel owners are insured for 5 million, whereas the actual transport cost is $12 million. What can they do? They are also acting as freight forwarders, if I get this right, not just as the hauliers, right, Ildus?
Elizabeth, yes, that's correct. Your interpretation is absolutely correct. However, we are talking about not the cargo value of 5 million, but liability insurance value up to 5 million. So the vessel owner will carry the amount of cargo with the maximum value of the cargo on the vessel being 12 million, while their liability is only up to 5 million. So question is pretty much simple. Should you ask the carrier to buy extra liability insurance?
Normally, the vessel that has a $5 million liability insurance is a vessel which is rather older and is insured with a fixed facility. The fixed facilities provide low limits. 5, 10, sometimes, of course, bigger limits like 100 million. So if the vessel is insured, has a limit of liability of 5 million, they will not cover you for more than 5 million.
Right.
This means that they have to increase. You have to ask for them, and it's difficult. The vessel owner has to ask his insurance company, his fixed facility provider, to increase the liability to 12 million or to 15, which means that the owner of the ship will have to pay an additional premium, which he will
That's
charge.
what I wanted to hear. Yeah.
Which he will charge to you. The fixed facilities, as I mentioned before, do not have the high limits that the pool clubs grant to their ship owners. So the limits are small. 5 million is very small. It means that the ship is small, the ship must be older. It might be insured in a peculiar market, in a fixed market. You are from Kazakhstan, maybe it's insured in Russia.
We are in Kazakhstan, and we are talking about marine voyage in the Caspian Sea between the Kazakh port to Azerbaijan port.
Right. So maybe the ship owner is insured in with Ingostrak or with any other facilities that give very limited limits.
That's right.
I know insurance is always very interesting. Time is passing by, and in light of that, I need to just finalize this lovely chat with Ioanna with one last question that has been on the chat room for a long time now. So that comes from Andrea Valles. I don't know if we can get you online with your camera on. I will just read it. Hi, just a doubt. We are a freight forwarder from Uruguay. We have our lollipop insurance, but not always the customer hires the insurance over the cargo. So that means that they don't buy the insurance over the cargo. What is your advice about this case? Bear in mind, over cargo project and also normal cargo. So both for normal cargo and for project cargo, what is your advice? I mean, we are talking to...
What is the lollipop? What is the lollipop? Tinto lollipop.
I don't know this. For me, lollipops are the instruments that we use, the equipment we use to discharge windmills so that the towers do not collide. So in terms of insurance, I don't know.
Hi, nice to meet you to all.
Hi, Andrea.
Hi, Andrea. I was in Uruguay last October. Fantastic country.
Yes. Okay. Always welcome all. Today is a good day. We are not on summertime, we are on winter time, but today is a sunny day. Good. Very good day. Good. No, just Elizabeth raised my question and explained so good. The lollipop is the liability policy. We already have the liability policy, but this is some doubt that always appear. Not always our customer hire the cargo insurance, or in sometimes increase the cost for them. So what is I would like to know your advice about
your customer does not case. Your customer does not buy cargo insurance.
Sometimes yes, they are, but on another times they reject to hire the cargo the insurance over the cargo.
So, and your customer is the shipper?
No, is the final owner of the cargo.
Oh, and you mean that the final owner of the cargo does not buy insurance, or does he buy it in his own country?
Yes.
He buys it in his own country, so you transfer it on an FOB basis.
No, we have our insurance liability policy valid. Right. Okay, but the cargo that we transport for the customer, sometimes if the customer is a company, okay, they have a big insurance overall transportation cargo that they but on another time, maybe when we have a customer that is a small company, doesn't hire the insurance over the cargo that's request to us our service.
So it means that he doesn't insure his cargo at all.
Yes.
He does not insure his cargo. So,
Yes.
yeah, well, if the cargo, again, if the cargo arrives and it's in a damaged condition and it transpires that you are liable, your policy will pay, irrespective of the fact that he's uninsured. That doesn't really matter. It doesn't
Okay.
matter if he's not insured. It doesn't stop him from asking you to pay if you are liable. Do you have any doubts?
No, your advice is that if we have our liability insurance, we should not worry about that.
No, because if the receiver doesn't want to insure, it has nothing to do with you. What your underwriter is going to pay is whatever you will be found liable against during the transportation of the cargo. It doesn't matter if he's uninsured. It's his problem.
Okay. 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 Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. It's been, I mean, I do need to put a full stop here, otherwise questions will keep on coming and we're already past our time limit for this webinar. Before everybody goes, I would kindly ask you all to switch on your camera so that we have a nice picture for our webinar and everybody can see himself, herself nicely on the screen. So make sure that we have your face in the picture.
Carlos Kyriakos.
Kyriakos, you are famous, I guess.
Yes, always.
He's the
Who
one
has the best?
He's
Who
the
has
one.
the best camera?
Yeah.
I don't think I have.
Okay. Okay, because there are too many people and do not fit on my screen, we will make 2 shots. Give me a second. 1, 2, 3. Okay, Bart, you are in. Great, thanks. Good, and then I move to the next screen because it's too many people. I think that, Ioanna, you have hit a record of participants in this webinar. Okay, I'm gonna...
Always nice to exchange views to see how other countries work.
Perfect. Thank you all very much. I understand that there are maybe more things that you would like to discuss with Ioanna, and Ioanna, only if you have the time, you don't have to. If we can ask people to reach out to us by email with any questions, and I will gladly forward to you. People, please contact Julia at administrator@theheavyliftgroup.com, and Ioanna will be more than happy to give you some answers. It's a pity because we exceeded time before. Just a few minutes ago, Adnan Bayic, I don't know the exact pronunciation of this name, a journalist from Project Cargo Journal, was here with us, and he had a few questions, but the time didn't allow him to ask them. So again, he will reach out to you, Ioanna, by email. Adnan, for the ones who are interested, is hosting the Project Cargo Journal Summit in Bilbao, Spain this September. So the topic of discussion will be insurance. So thank you so much, Ioanna. It was such a pleasure having you.
Thank you. Nice meeting you all.
And thank you everybody for joining us today.
Thank you so much for this session.